Alrighty.
Alrighty.
So we got three practices here for stopping the internal dialogue.
Yep.
Training that.
Yep.
And the first one is bump.
Observation of your own mind. Observation of your own thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this is the first time we've talked about this in this program.
Mm-hmm.
Others, we've talked about it before, but let's just go through it. Like
From scratch.
From scratch.
There's not much to it. It's more
there's
of the
not a whole-
doing than
that's
there is
right.
the explaining. But, we know what the reason is now because we just talked about that, right? It's, being able to stop, that internal dialogue to, start to slow down your thoughts and put them on the back burner for a while and find those spaces in between thoughts that will glean much more energy and be able to focus it on what you want without distraction.
Yeah.
So, that being said, I mean, there's that goal, but the other goal with observing your thoughts or, and any of these three things, but especially with observing your thoughts is knowing yourself, right? So that's sort of that, again, over the temple of Apollo, right, in Greece. It was like, know thyself was both over the doorway was both, a warning and, a command, so it's like, if you don't, you're in danger, let's say, the more you don't know yourself because you don't know you're not conscious of your responses to certain things and how you're going to respond to certain things and also where your tendencies lie and all of that. So it's sort of like, okay, if I know myself well and I know my tendencies towards certain things, it's going to be easier for me to sort of take steps to circumnavigate those or find a way around them or or work with them in order to produce a certain effect that I'm looking for, right? So and that's a constant process, is unpacking the internal you and knowing what your tendencies are and what you like, what you don't like, all of those, the things that are most superficial and the things that are deeper that maybe you haven't even explored yet, biases and tendencies and even prejudices and just everything, right? So and really trying to get to know yourself in the most intimate way that in that respect. So observation of thoughts is where we start with that. And basically the technique is easy. You can set up a candle or you can be in the pitch dark, and you're just going to set aside, start with 5 minutes and be in a comfortable position. Again, like meditation, right? That it's going to be back is straight and the body's relaxed. You're going to go into a relax the whole body as much as possible. And then when you start, it's just literally observing the thoughts that come into your head and go out of your head. And the idea is that you're not trying to push them away or not trying to keep them away because that just feeds them and causes them, to bring it on even stronger, right? But you'll notice in the beginning, you're going to be flooded with them. It's just like, as soon as you try to, close your eyes and quiet your mind or anything like that, it's just going to be like ricochet rabbit, right? One after the other. But basically I'm acknowledging them and I'm letting them go. And it's not like I'm trying to push them away or block them. Again, that's really important. It's letting them go. And I always think of it, everybody has a different sort of image that they use. And for me, it was always that, just sort of swiping them away. I don't want that scene. I swipe it away, mentally in my mind. And, I acknowledge what it is, like, oh, got to balance my checkbook, let it go, or later, I know somebody else that uses that single command, like later, until finally, they start to slow down. It's like you see them coming before it's just like
Right.
one of those fields where you just sort of like, they just pop up all over the place, right? And you don't even know where to start, right? So, but as you start to do that and just acknowledge what they are and let them go, acknowledge what they are, let them go, or later, and swipe them away, then, you might spend several weeks where it's just doing that feeling like you're not getting anywhere, and just keep going, and all of a sudden you'll notice there's like you notice a gap in between like one thought and the next. Like it's almost startling. Like, what was that? Is like a break of silence in between where, another one finally pops up, but you notice almost in hindsight, right? That it's like, there was a thought I was thinking about balancing my checkbook. I let that go. And then there was another one, but there was some gap of time in between, which I can sort of register that there was a break. And that's what I'm sort of concentrating on. And it's not like you have to try to enhance that. The more you try, the worse it gets. So stick with the same protocol. Something else will come up, a thought will come up very slowly, come into your awareness, you acknowledge it. Oh, there's that checkbook thing again, and let it go. And when you get done right from the beginning, it's always good it's not so much that we're trying to register every single thought, right? It's the idea is that, I'm looking for patterns. And so, because it just gives me insight into myself again. That's where that knowing yourself, we don't always know, what's the most upsetting things to us or what we're trying to work through all the time. So
Right.
It's like in seeing the patterns we can see, it's like, wow, it seems like the majority of that session was about finance, or balancing my checkbook or something like, it kept coming back to things like that. And so more than anything else, that seems to be the thing that I was focused on the most. And, if you see that that's a continuous process, day after day after day, or you look back in your notebook, for a week and you go like, wow, I'm really concerned about this. And, what can I do to, dissuade that a bit? Maybe there's something I can do from this outward point to sort of make amends with that, right? And so you start, maybe you balance your checkbook, even if you're tired that day. And, it's like, it's not the last thing you want to do, but you do it. And that sort of lets the subconscious, oh, okay, you've taken care of that. That's one more thing off the books, right? And we all know that when we when we do something finally that takes care of something that we've been hanging over us for a little while, we feel good after that.
Right.
Good job, bad job. We know we have to do it again at some other time. It's still like you get that sense of relief, right? And so, not as much energy is going into that anymore. And
Right.
so there's that sense of feeling good. There's a relief. There's a recovery period in that. And that
You cut off that leak.
That's right. You cut off that leak of energy for sure. So, and continuing with that, it just makes good sense that, you would keep moving in that direction,
Right.
go back to it. And you'll see that as time goes on, it slows down, and you'll get more and more of those breaks for longer periods of time, and that's what you really want to do. And again, when I come out, I write down what the majority of thoughts were, and that sort of gives me a clue. After a while, you get pretty good at it. Like this thing just wouldn't leave me alone. And it's like, okay, well, if I take care of that, there's nothing there for it to hang on to anymore.
Right.
So it's a way to sort of point in that direction and take care of that, and, cuts off that energy leak, like you said. So, so that'd be the first technique.
And isn't that like a more concrete example of what we're talking about when people say personal power?
Yeah. You make your life tighter by taking care of things that need to be taken care of at the time without scrambling and being overwhelmed and letting everything build up so much that it's just, you don't even know where to start. It looks like, I don't know, like you're trying to clean, your basement out in a day when it's taken 10 years of stuff, piled up in every corner. It's like, oh, this is never going to happen, so it's a process.
Right.
And, but when it's done, you feel that openness, that space, and that energy that's not, just sort of being dissipated into that and adding to it and adding strife and concern about that and worry. All of those things take a lot of energy. They wear you down over time. And so this is just one way to sort of help you focus through the mess. And where do I start with this? And if I take care of that one thing and I feel a little bit of a surge from that, it's impetus to do the next one, right? Because I want to have that again. So it's the way that we, start doing that and taking care of those things. So it serves us on two purposes. It makes our life tighter on the outside in our, physical environment. and also gives us more space when we move into that mental environment too. So
Right.
it's sort of killing two birds with one stone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the first one, observation.
Awesome. So do you have any practice recommendations in terms of how often or setting aside a certain period of time to work on that to get a handle on recognizing patterns, or, like how what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, ideally you would do it, starting, I'll give you all three parameters,
Yeah.
good, bad, or good, good, better, best. Okay.
Good, better, best.
Good, better, best. Not good, bad, or best.
Yeah.
So, good is, if you could do it 5 minutes 3 times a week, that's good. That's okay. If you can do it, better would be 5 minutes every day. Usually first thing in the morning is usually better than the end of the day when you're tired. I think you'll see the most, the outcome of it as far as energy being enhanced. You'll feel that through the day more than going to bed right after that. So that's why I say first thing in the morning. The ideal or best would be 5 minutes twice a day. And of course, as time goes on, you're going to increase that timing, right? So, but as things get better, you're also not going to have to do it as often. If you want to, obviously it's a great practice. You should continue to do it forever. But, it doesn't have to be.
After a while, you get a handle on
Right.
when you need more of that or whatever.
Yeah, it varies. Again, it's all flexible when
Yeah.
it comes to that. So, you're going to build it up to, I'd say if you can observe your thoughts without distraction for, 20 minutes would be ideal. Take you some time to get to that level, but 20 minutes would be ideal. And that'll give you enough information to look at the patterns and all of that. And see more of those gaps sort of bleeding through, right? So, which is good. That's what we're trying to achieve. Both sides, know it. That way I can take care of it. I'm more efficient in my daytime routine because I'm taking care of those things that will also give me more free time and more focus when I'm doing my mental work as well.
Right.
Yeah. So up to 20 minutes would be the best.
Cool.
But other than that, I mean, the parameters are however you want to set it up. I wouldn't make it too elaborate. I try to keep things simple. There's plenty of stuff that is elaborate that you're not going to get out of, but this is one of those ones where it's like the least amount of you're going to resist doing this because your mind is saying, "Oh no, we're going to take inventory." There's nothing worse than inventory. So, it's a lot of work. So it's like, nobody wants to actually have how distracted they are, shoved in their face on a regular basis, and you're doing it to yourself. So there's definitely going to be some internal stuff going on there that's going to try to, set up roadblocks to keep you from doing it, right? So, but it's really, so keep it as simple as you can. That way you have less of those things set up for you. Oh, I don't have the perfect candle. Oh, I don't have the perfect place. Oh, it's too light out. It's too dark out. It's too, it's like make it as simple as possible so you can just get in there, sit and do it.
Yeah.
That's the best. Don't make it too elaborate. It doesn't take a lot.
I have a question.
Okay.
So my question is, let's say you know yourself somewhat well enough. You know what you have to, you know what you want to do. You know what you have to do to like resolve that thing. But then there's all this mental chatter that's coming up surrounding not being able to accomplish that thing immediately. Worry, anxiety about not being able to get it done, all that stuff.
Sure.
Then what do you do?
Then what do you do?
So basically, you're observing your mind. You see the things that need to get done to make you feel better, but you can't take care of them right away. So that causes more anxiety or more mental chatter about not being able to do the thing you know you need to do, but you just can't do it right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's a great question because a lot of people are in that boat. And, You know, it's one thing to ignore things that you know you have to take care of. It's another to feel like you can't take care of them. And you know, that's pretty succinct, right? And so using these same principles, what do we do about that? So once we've identified it, because usually they're not things that are fun. Again, you know, these are, you know, fun things we can put off to the side and say, oh, okay, that's going to be in 2 days. That's going to be great. I can let it go. And but these are the, you know, things that are worries to us, right? And how do we, you know, it seems like the more we're kept from doing anything about them, it compounds the worry. So here's a little trick. And so, you know, there's an idea that when something's happening, you get locked into a state of fear. And you get locked into a state of fear because all fear comes from the past or the future, but there's no actual fear in the present. Because in the present, there's only action, you know. And so, you know, you can't be afraid while you're acting because everything goes toward acting. And you know, all of your energy goes toward that. You know, if you really analyze it and think about times when you've been afraid, as soon as you can be afraid before, but it's because you're thinking, you know, oh, this happened to so and so, so you're thinking about an event in the past, or this happened to me before and it really worked out poorly. Oh, I'm afraid that it's going to work out poorly again, and you know, compounding that. What do I do? What's going to, you know, or something in the, you know, something in the future that hasn't actually happened to you yet, you know, so like, oh, if this happens, then this happens, and this happens, and I'm on the street, you know, so to speak. And so, you know, we've put our, you know, mind in the future, things that potentially could happen, but it gives us less energy to act in the present right now. But when we're actually doing something, no matter if it's a physical motion that we have to get out of something, or you know, run or do any of those things, we're not actually afraid when we're doing it. You know, it's like we have to have that thought process going to be afraid. And so, you know, if you take some small action, and it doesn't have to be, it's not like every action that you take has to be directly causing you know, a dissolution of that problem. It can be, you know, working if it's a finance thing, it's working the figures out on a piece of paper, you know, and just doing that and keeping your head in the action of doing that. Like, oh, how can I rearrange these? Does it make any difference? You know, how can I do this? How can I, you know, start thinking about, well, if I save this, this is going to give me that. And, you know, how else can I do that? Where can I put things into this? So you're actually taking some action and doing that. That will help to dissipate that fear. It doesn't always have to be a direct, you know, like, I'm going to get, you know, might be, but it doesn't have to be, you know, like, I'm going to get a second job and that's going to make this go away. And then when that's gone away, I can leave that second job or whatever it is. It's not forever. You know, it's just one territory, but you're actually doing something to affect a change. And so, but even just focusing your mind on doing something, whether it's just doing the figures to see if there's anything that you missed or whatever, it's going to keep you in a place where that helps to dissipate, and you're going to see that the anxiety level goes down.
Okay, so what if it's like so intense that it's literally like you're at work and you physically can't do those things, and so it's like creating, or it's even a task that, you know, somebody gave you to do, but you're working on something else that you have to finish before you do that, and it's like that narrow of a window of time where you're like,
right.
I literally can't do anything right now,
right,
at all related to that until I'm done with this, and then
yep. So again,
when to like shut, you know.
Well, one of the reasons that those things get compounded is because people aren't willing to stand up for themselves and say, I have this project to finish right now. Do you want me to do this next project prior to finishing this project? Otherwise, it's going to take me 3 hours to finish this project, and then I can do that. Or does this one supersede that? Is that the priority now? Because I can't do both at the same time. It's not possible. And if you have that very direct conversation up front, and it doesn't have to be adversarial, right? It's just a statement of facts. Then not only, even if they sort of get huffy about it, it's like you've at least spoken the truth. And that's going to already make you feel better.
So it's boundaries, verbal boundaries, basically.
There's that as well. I mean, for a lot of different reasons that we could just kind of list out. I mean, there's going to be a conservation of energy because you're taking all that on yourself, and there's no reason to do that when it's being imposed by somebody else. You know, if it's situational, like I said in the first part, any action taken toward the resolution of that is already going to be a place where you have a break, because you're not going to be able to keep that same level of anxiety up while you're doing that. And so it's a way to deflect that and give you a bit of a breather, even though you're not directly, you know, going out, getting another job and working and getting the money and paying off what you need to pay off or whatever that is. It's like just doing the figures and looking at it from a point of observation where you're saying, you know, maybe I missed something. If I go through these, you know, is there another way that I can look at this? Is there another way that this can be resolved that I didn't see the first time? Which I find when we do that, there is many times. You know, it's like we only see the narrow sliver that we're sort of indoctrinated into, and we accept for ourselves, and we repeat over and over again, even if it doesn't work well. But when we sort of tear it apart and rebuild it from scratch and say, okay, just on the chance, let me rework these figures and let me do this and see what happens. So A, it gives you a break, it's not so anxiety provoking, and at the same time, you might actually come up with a solution that you never even considered before. And that happens a lot of times. So again, for me, it's always in the action that it dissipates those fear things. The action will dissipate fear, the action will dissipate, you know, worry, and basically all of those things are draining away your energy, which makes you or less effective when you actually have to go and do that. Nobody wants to be, you know, again, coming back to basics, right? It's like, it's really much harder to deal with a problem when you're absolutely exhausted. And the exhaustion, it's not even from doing the work. The exhaustion is from worry, which doesn't lend you anything, you know, for that. It's literally has nothing but a negative consequence to you. It does. If you said, you know, get yourself into a panic attack and all your worries will be gone, you know, that'll resolve your bills and that'll resolve your this and that. It'd be like everybody be on that, right? I mean, like, what can I do to ramp that up? So, but that's not the case, right? So it's like, if that really resolved it, I mean, that would be the end. So, you know, it's that, but the worst part of that is not that you feel the worry, is that worry is draining you from being more effective when you do attack the problem, right? When you do make an action toward it. And so my way is to, you know, take the action first. When you know something's consuming your thoughts and it's of a worry nature or a fear nature, then take any action will give you a bit of a break. Even if it's reworking numbers you've reworked 1,000,000 times, that motion, that action will actually give you a break and help, you know, reserve some of your energy. Don't let it leak, stop the leak. And then, you know, when you do go to approach it, it's going to be, you know, you're going to be much better, much more apt to take care of it. You won't run out of steam while you're doing it. You won't make bad decisions because you're too exhausted to think about it clearly, which is another way we dig our holes deeper, right?
Right. I mean, I was just going to say if we can add to that, it's not just about the one thing that you're ruminating about. There's the compound interest of it as well. It's
Right.
like the more things you ignore or don't do or don't take care of, the weaker you become, because they're draining your energy.
Right.
And then the weaker you become. And the reverse of it is, right, the more things that you can put some action into and take care of bit by bit or whatever, each one of those things is a conservation of energy and a consolidation of power, and makes you stronger and more, and gives you more of that ability to take care of even more things or whatever it is, or
Right.
go and does not each one of those things that you can do move you deeper inside as well?
Absolutely, because you have more reserves. You know, everybody's looking for that, you know, what they call personal power, but nobody can really articulate what that actually is.
Right.
And it starts from those small things. Again, clean your room, right? You may not be able to take care of the giant problems in your life right now because you're, you know, worthless and pathetic. But at the same time, it's like, and nobody ever taught you how to do that. But you can take care of simple things. Look in the room that you're sitting in right now And is there something that's just hanging there that doesn't need to be there? Is there a small piece of trash that needs to be thrown away? Is there something that can be rearranged and or dusted and put in place that doesn't cost you anything except you're having to physically do it, right?
Right.
Take care of those places. And here's the weirdest part. It's like people, I rarely ever heard somebody say, I really took care of this thing and I felt lousy after that. It doesn't happen.
No.
People, even you clean up one little area. I mean, I've done this with as little as like cleaning up a single shelf of books and saying, okay, I need to rearrange these or whatever. And I felt better after doing that. And so it was like, okay, it wasn't something I could leave them like that for years and nothing really would happen, except that it's just nagging at me, right? Which is enough. I would try to cut all that stuff off. And that's what I mean by making your life tighter. It's like taking care of those details. If you start with the small ones, it's only going to lead to bigger ones, because once you see, once that feedback loop of, I do this, I feel better, I want to feel better, I do this a little bit more, I feel even better, and so it compounds, right? And so you're starting to take care of bigger things until finally, wow, I got my shit together. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is great. And you're going into everyday's events like you got a handle on this stuff. And, mm-hmm. And you start organizing and you start thinking about it. And, okay, how am I going to attack this next problem? I've done all these small ones. I've done 40, 50, 60 small ones, 100 small ones in the last couple of weeks. It's like, I'm ready. I'm going to take this on now. I'm going to really strip it apart and rebuild it and see how I'm going to get out of this problem. And it doesn't seem so daunting anymore. And here's the other thing, you end up with enough personal power or energy reserved that before, when you wouldn't even consider asking somebody for help, you'll ask somebody for help just to even advise you on how would I take care of this. It's like a good friend of mine, one of my best advisors, said to me when I was looking to do something financially, it's like and I had to go to the bank to approach them with it. And I said, how do you do, I was trying to think of I didn't know that much about it. So I was thinking the most complicated, like make a business plan, do this, have all these angles covered, and, and knowing that it wasn't my area of expertise. Right. And he said, it's so much easier than that. But unless you know it, nobody ever comes up with this on their own. He said, go into the banker and ask them how they would do it if it was theirs. Simple. You're utilizing their expertise, and it changed the whole environment of the conversation. It's not like I'm going in with my hat in my hands and going like, oh, I've got this project, can you lend me some money? I know I'm worthless and pathetic, but could you give me some money so I can do this thing that I really want to do? No. It was like, here's this great idea that I have. I'm going to go forward with it. How would you do this if it was yours? How would you finance it? How would you do these, how would you set this up to make it work?
Right.
And he was like, because now it's a challenge for him, right? It's a game. It's oh, it's not really mine. I have nothing vested in it. But, for game's sake, let's figure out the best way to do this. And it's like it changed the whole environment of it. So, again, but if I didn't have enough, personal power to, ask my friend, I never would have gotten that. I would have been the hat in the hand, wringing and trying to, thinking that I'm not worthy, going in there thinking I'm not worthy to get this, because the general rule is if you need it, you're not worthy to get it. And so how do you make yourself not need it? Feeling that you're worthy to get that, and so it's just, but you see, it's all the same elements, but we're just turning them, right? And it's like, and it all starts from making your life tighter, making, your personal power literally is how you make your life tight, because it's less and less of those leaks going on all the time. Mm-hmm. And then you have reserve to, do what you need to do, whether it's asking for advice or help from a neighbor or a friend or, whatever. Could be asking for advice from a competitor. It's like, do you have enough power to do that? Mm. That's a big deal, right?
Totally.
Instead of thinking of it as a risk or all of these things, right? So, just certain examples, but that's the idea, right? It's like, take action. You know, with the smallest thing you can think of. Don't hit the giants yet. You know, it's like clean up your shit.
Right.
You know,
The
in
way,
small
what was it?
things.
The way that Jordan Peterson said it, which was great, was ask yourself, like, what can I do to, take care of this thing or whatever that I'm willing to do, or that I'm, not even just like that I'm able to do, but that I'm willing to do now. It's like,
Right.
to frame it that way to yourself so that it's not like, because if, it's like, okay, we all know maybe perhaps how some of those things could be taken care of or should be tackled completely or whatever.
Right.
But it's like, but we also know that we may not be willing to do the complete thing the next moment or the next day or whatever. And so, I mean, for me, it's like if I can frame it in the way that's like, okay, well, what am I willing to do? What am I able to do? What do I know that I can do? So it's like I'm not knowing that I'm going to fail at the giant thing and then beating myself up about that and making one more power leak. It's
Right.
like,
Right.
it's
And some people will say, do the hardest thing in the day first. That way the rest of your day is a clean sweep. But I feel like you've got to at least, tighten your life up before you can really do that effectively. It's not like do the worst thing in the day badly. It's like, how are you going to succeed in doing the hardest thing in the day first? And you need your life tight to do that. And so clean up those small things. I get into the office and, if things are out of place, I make sure everything's in place. It's set up, ready for the day. I know it's going to be messed up by the end of the day, maybe even by the middle of the day.
right.
But I'm constantly, I'm starting out with everything intact and in a good place. And so from there, I'm moving into the day in a good way. And, it's efficient and it's effective.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Good? Yeah? Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Little bonus material.
Yeah, that was good, man.
Here's bonus.
Thank you, Kira.
I like it, Kara. That was a good question.